Hey everybody, Chief here again for the OKest MTG content creator, and I'm back with another episode of Unique Commanders. This one brought to you by a friend of mine named Alan, and I think we're going to have fun with this guy today. So let's get right into it. The commander we're looking at for today is going to be Captain Nagathrod. For 3 and Demir, you get a legendary creature, Pirate Horror. He says horrors you control have menace, and whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. And at the beginning of your end step, choose a target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn and put it onto the battlefield under your control. So, he's a 3/6 too. So a lot to take in here. First of all, he gives all your horrors menace, which implies you should probably be playing horror tribal. And also, those horrors, if they're going to deal combat damage to a player, it makes the opponents mill that many cards, and then you just get something for free every end step from one of their graveyards, artifact or creature. So this is pretty awesome. You want a very Demir commander. Well, this is it right here. This is the guy, because he is going to do a ton of milling. He has alternate win cons in the way of combos, combat damage. I think this is a really interesting commander. And Alan kind of told me this is one of his favorite decks. Pretty much his first deck that he built. And he has beefed it up to the point it is nearly CDH level. So he doesn't play it against us that often, which I'm thankful for. But let's get into some of the best cards in the deck for Captain N. So first up, we're going to see Sir Conrad the Grim. I love this guy. He is an awesome creature who's a 5/4 for 3 and 2 black, who says, whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then he's got the activated ability to make each player mill a card. So Sir Conrad does a lot. Basically, if anything dies or a creature goes to the graveyard or leaves your graveyard, it's going to do damage to your opponents. I actually run a Sir Conrad commander deck myself, and he's really powerful. Very combo centric. He can do a lot. He's also got Bruvac the Grandiloquent. For 2 and a blue, he's a legendary creature who just says if an opponent would mill 1 or more cards, they mill twice that many cards instead. So this is feeding the game plan for Captain N. He's basically making your opponents mill twice as many, so you get more chances to get something good out of their graveyard at each end step. And also, it can feed into that alternate win con of just milling your opponents out. Also got Alter the Brood. For 1 generic mana, you get an artifact that says whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So this is, again, just a lot of synergy with the commander, with Sir Conrad, with Bruvac. It's just milling your opponents. It's getting you more chances to get something good out of their graveyard every end step. Next up, Mind Crank. This is an awesome artifact that feeds into the mill game plan so much. It synergizes so well with Sir Conrad and with the commander itself and with Bruvac. Everything is kind of feeding toward the same game plan of milling opponents, dealing damage to them, milling some more. It just all works so well. Then you got for 1 black, Blood Chief Ascension, an enchantment that says at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Blood Chief Ascension. And then whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Blood Chief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. So this enchantment with Mind Crank and with Sir Conrad can basically be a infinite damage and infinite win combo. 3 of those together, you start milling your opponents. They're going to take damage. They're going to have to mill some more. They're going to lose more life. It just creates this loop to where your opponents really have no chance to get back in the game. Next, we got some of the horrors we're going to look at. So very well known, Toxrill the Corrosive. For 5 and 2 black, you get a slug horror who says at the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get +1/+1 for each slime counter on them. And whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, you make a 1/1 black slug creature token. And then you can pay Dimir and sacrifice a slug to draw a card. Toxrill is an oppressive creature. Anybody who's playing a small creatures, low to the ground creatures deck is going to be in fear of this guy coming out. Because he basically can be a board wipe almost every end step, or over turns, it'll just accrue more and more of those slime counters and more of those -1 onto each creature, and just kind of keep wiping the board of all the small creatures that you don't control. So Toxrill, very scary, very Dimir, gotta love it. And Sludge Monster. For 3 and 2 blue, you get a creature horror 5/5 who says whenever Sludge Monster enters the battlefield or attacks, put a slime counter on up to one other target creature. And non-horror creatures with slime counters on them lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 2/2. So this guy is going to synergize very well with Toxrill, because now those creatures that have slime counters on them are automatically going to become 2/2s no matter how big they were. So really, in 2 turns, Toxrill's just going to wipe all of your opponent's creatures. This is a pretty insane deck, if I'm being honest. It seems scary, and it seems very able to combo very quickly. So I gotta say, Alan, you built a monster, no pun intended, of a deck here. The captain does a lot on his own, because you have the game plan of just playing massive creatures from a graveyard for free. And then you also have the mill game plan. So you're going to do a lot of combat damage. You're going to make your opponents mill a lot, which is going to give you more creatures to do more combat damage, to look at the artifacts and enchantments that make people mill, which can do more damage and make them lose more life. This is an insane, awesome commander. Very unique. I think people have heard of the captain before. He was a pretty popular pre-con commander for a while. But yeah, I just wanted to give a highlight to Alan's deck and just point out that this is really cool. I kind of don't want to play against it myself that often, but I am always amazed at what he can accomplish with this guy, and it just seems very fun to play and to pilot. And that's pretty much it for today. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. If so, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And with that, this has been another episode of the OKest MTG Content Creator. Until next time, you all have a good one.